I stood in that cramped plasma center, my stomach growling from 3 days without a proper meal, when the nurse's face went white as she stared at my blood sample. "Mr. Rayford," she whispered, backing away from the microscope. "I need to get the director. Now." That was the moment my life split into 2 parts, before I knew what was flowing through my veins, and after. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, harsh and unforgiving, making everything look cheaper than it already was. My name is Colton Rayford, and 6 months ago I owned a demolition company worth $8 million. I had crews across 3 states, government contracts, and a wife who loved telling her book club friends about our vacation home in Aspen. But standing there in that plasma center on Buchanan Street, watching a 20-something nurse look at my blood like she'd discovered alien life, I was just another broke middle-aged man trying to scrape together $50. "Sir, please don't move," the nurse said, and I noticed her hands were trembling as she picked up the desk phone. Her name tag read Keeley, and she'd been nothing but kind to me since I'd walked in, embarrassed and desperate, filling out forms that asked questions like, "When did you last eat a full meal?" I'd lied on that one. 3 days sounded better than 5. "Is something wrong with my blood?" I asked, and my voice cracked because suddenly I was thinking about diseases, about cancer, about all the ways a man's body can betray him when he's already lost everything else. "Am I sick?" "No, Mr. Rayford, you're not sick," Keeley said, but she was already dialing, her fingers fumbling with the numbers. "It's just that your blood is—" She stopped herself, glanced at me, then spoke quickly into the phone. "Dr. Brannigan, you need to come to Station 3 immediately. Yes, right now. I have a donor with Null blood." I didn't know what Null meant, but the way she said it, like she was announcing she'd found the Holy Grail in a plastic collection bag, made my chest tighten. Around us, other donors sat in worn recliners, scrolling through their phones or staring at the mounted TV playing some morning talk show. None of them knew that the biggest loser in the room was about to discover he'd been carrying liquid gold in his veins for 48 years. "Keeley, what's Null?" I asked, but she was already hanging up, already pulling out a second collection kit with movements that had gone from routine to reverent. "Mr. Rayford, Null blood is the rarest blood type in the world. Only 43 people on Earth have been documented with it. Your blood can save people who would die without it. People who have no other matches, no other hope. 43 people, out of 8 billion. I looked down at my arm where the needle sat taped against my skin, at the thin tube carrying dark red blood into a medical bag, and tried to understand how Colton Rayford, the man whose wife had spit in his face and called him worthless 2 weeks ago, could suddenly be one of the rarest human beings alive. The door burst open, and a tall, thin man in a white coat rushed in. Dr. Brannigan, according to his badge, and he looked at me the way archaeologists must look at undiscovered pyramids. "Mr. Rayford, I'm Dr. Brannigan, the medical director here." "Keeley, you're certain?" "I ran it 3 times, doctor. It's Null." He pulled up a chair right next to my recliner, close enough that I could smell his coffee breath, and his eyes were bright with an excitement that seemed out of place in this depressing donation center where people sold pieces of themselves to make rent. "Mr. Rayford, I need to ask you some questions. Has anyone in your family ever mentioned having rare blood? Any unusual medical histories?" "My mother died when I was 2, I said. "Car accident. My father never mentioned anything about blood types. He's just a retired railroad engineer, lives in a duplex in Topeka." "We need to run a full panel immediately," Dr. Brannigan said, but then his phone buzzed, and when he looked at the screen, his expression changed. "That's impossible. How could they know already?" "Know what?" I asked, but he was standing, pacing now, talking rapidly to someone on the phone in medical terms I didn't understand. All I caught were fragments. "Yes, confirmed Null, and he's here now, and I understand the urgency." I thought about walking out, taking my $50 and leaving before whatever this was got more complicated. But then I thought about my son Bryce, trying to finish college while his mother told him daily what a disappointment his father had become. I thought about my brother Vaughn, pretending he didn't mind me eating his food and using his electricity. I thought about my father, Russell Rayford, who'd worked his whole life with his hands and was now offering me his Social Security money because his son had lost everything. "Mr. Rayford," Dr. Brannigan said, ending his call, "there's someone coming to speak with you. Someone who's going to make you an offer that will change your life." "I don't understand any of this," I said, and I hated how small my voice sounded, how defeated. This morning, I woke up on my brother's couch with $38 to my name. I came here to sell plasma so I could buy gas and ramen noodles. Now, you're telling me my blood is special? Not just special, Mr. Rayford. Your blood is precious. And right now, there's a man dying in Monaco who needs what you have. His family is already sending a representative. She'll be here in 10 minutes. Monaco. I knew it was in Europe, knew it was where rich people kept yachts and gambled away fortunes. It was the kind of place Melora had always dreamed of visiting, back when she thought I could give her that life. The needle in my arm suddenly felt heavier, more significant, as if it was drawing out something more than just blood. "There's more," Dr. Brannigan said, and something in his tone made me focus on his face. "When we identified your archnal status, our system automatically ran a genetic panel. It's protocol for rare blood types. Mr. Rayford, we found something in your DNA that doesn't match your stated family history." "What do you mean?" "I mean that genetically, you show markers consistent with a very specific European lineage, a family that's been extensively documented due to their unique blood characteristics." Before I could ask what he meant, the door opened again, and a woman walked in wearing a suit that probably cost more than my truck had been worth before the bank took it. She was maybe 40, with dark hair pulled back and eyes that assessed me like I was a business transaction. "Mr. Rayford, my name is Lucia Corvelo. I represent the Moreau family of Monaco. We need to discuss your blood, your family history, and an offer that's going to sound impossible, but I assure you is very real." And that's when my story really began. Not when I lost my company or when my wife left or when I hit rock bottom. It began the moment I learned that sometimes what saves you has been inside you all along, waiting for you to become desperate enough to discover it. 6 months earlier, I'd been Colton Rayford, owner of Rayford Demolition Services, with 14 crews working across 3 states. I had a house with a pool, a wife who loved hosting dinner parties, and my son Bryce in his 2nd year at State College. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. The morning everything started falling apart, I was standing on the Bridgewater Mall site, coffee in one hand, plans in the other. The old Brennan's department store had been empty for 12 years, a 4-story brick beast that needed to come down so the city could build their new shopping complex. It was a $20 million project, and my company had won the bid against 3 larger firms. "Colton, I've triple-checked everything," my project manager Denny Holbrook had said, waving the permit paperwork like a flag. Denny had been with me 8 years, knew demolition like some people know scripture. City signed off on all the utility shutoffs, gas, electric, water. Everything's been disconnected and capped. I trusted Denny. That was my first mistake. My second was not walking the basement myself one more time. My third was being too proud of landing the biggest contract in my company's history to ask the questions that might have saved everything. The demolition was textbook perfect until it wasn't. The charges fired in sequence, the building came down exactly as planned, folding in on itself like a house of cards. But when the dust started clearing, we heard the hissing. Then came the smell of natural gas, sharp and wrong. "Everyone back!" I screamed, and my crews scattered. The gas main we'd clipped wasn't on any city blueprint. It had been installed in 1962 by a company that no longer existed, feeding a part of the old downtown that had been redeveloped 3 times since. Nobody knew it was there because nobody alive remembered it being put in. Thank God, nobody got hurt. The fire department evacuated 6 blocks. The gas company had to do emergency shutoffs across half the business district. The 11 o'clock news led with aerial footage of my disaster. The reporter saying words like negligence and catastrophic oversight, while my company logo showed clear as day on every hard hat. The lawsuit started the next week. The city wanted $10 million in damages. The gas company wanted $5 million. Every business that lost a day of revenue wanted a compensation. My insurance company sent a team of lawyers who spent 3 days going through our paperwork before delivering their verdict in my own conference room. The policy clearly states that all permits must be verified independently, the lead attorney had said, sliding papers across the table. Your signatures on documents stating all underground utilities were mapped and cleared. Since that wasn't true, we're denying coverage. But the city gave us the wrong information, I said, my voice rising. Their blueprints were wrong. Then you should have verified independently. It's in your contract, Mr. Rayford, page 47, subsection 12. Within 4 months, everything was gone. The company I'd built over 20 years dissolved. The house I'd bought when Bryce was born foreclosed. The trucks, the equipment, all auctioned off to pay a fraction of what I owed. My business accounts frozen, my credit destroyed. Melora lasted exactly 2 weeks after the foreclosure notice arrived. I need to stay with my sister Patricia for a while, she'd announced one morning, already dressed, her suitcases by the door. Patricia pulled up in her Mercedes, didn't even come inside. I need time to think about us, Colton. Think about us? Mel, I need you now more than ever. This is when married people support each other. She looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before, like I was something stuck to her shoe. I didn't marry a loser, Colton. You're 48 years old, and you're about to be homeless. You can't even afford to take me to dinner anymore. She picked up her jewelry box, the one I'd bought her for our 15th anniversary. You know what you are now? You're just another broke, middle-aged failure who couldn't hack it. 22 years, Mel. We've been married 22 years. And for 21 of them, you were successful. She walked to the door, then turned back. My lawyer will send papers. Don't contest it, Colton. Just let me go with whatever dignity you have left. After she left, I sat in our empty house, surrounded by boxes of things I couldn't afford to store, and called my brother Vaughn. Come stay with me, he said immediately. The basement's not much, but it's warm and dry. Vaughn ran a small HVAC repair business, did well enough to support his family, but not well. Enough that having his failure of an older brother sleeping in his basement wasn't a burden. His wife Denise tried to be kind, but I could see the strain in her eyes when she'd set an extra plate at dinner. My father, Russell Rayford, called every few days from Topeka. Son, I've got about $12,000 in savings, he'd offer, his voice gruff with the emotion he'd never been good at expressing. It's yours if you need it. Dad, you're 73 and living on Social Security. I'm not taking your money. You're my boy, Colton. Let me help. I'll figure it out, Dad. I always have. But I hadn't figured it out. By January, I was down to my last $40, eating ramen twice a day, applying for jobs I was either overqualified for or too old to get. The construction foreman position in Davenport was my last real shot, but I needed gas money to get there for the interview. That's when I saw the sign outside the BioLife Plasma Center. New donors, $50 first visit. $50 for something my body made for free. It seemed like a perfect metaphor for how far I'd fallen. From signing million-dollar contracts to selling my blood for grocery money. From being Colton Rayford, successful businessman, to being just another desperate man with nothing left to sell but himself. By January, I was down to my last $40. The basement at Vaughn's house had become my whole world. A pull-out couch with a broken spring that dug into my back, a card table where I ate my meals, and a small window that showed just enough sky to remind me there was still a world outside. Every morning, I'd wake up to the sound of Vaughn's kids getting ready for school overhead, their footsteps a reminder of the normal life happening above me while I hid below like something shameful. Bryce had called the night before, trying to sound casual, but I could hear the worry bleeding through his forced cheerfulness. "Dad, I've been thinking. I can take a semester off, get a job. There's a construction company here that's hiring." "Absolutely not," I'd told him, gripping the phone hard enough to make my knuckles white. "You're 3 semesters from graduating. You stay in school." "But Dad, I heard Mom talking to Aunt Patricia. She said you're living in Uncle Vaughn's basement, that you're eating ramen every day, that you don't even have money for gas." The betrayal of Melora discussing my situation like gossip stung worse than hunger. "Your mother doesn't know everything about my situation, Bryce. I'm fine. I have an interview next week in Davenport. Big commercial project, they need a foreman with experience." "Dad, just let me help. I can send you something from my work-study money." "Bryce, stop. I'm your father. I take care of you, not the other way around. Focus on your studies. Promise me." "Okay, Dad, I promise." After hanging up, I'd stared at the ceiling until 3 in the morning, calculating and recalculating. $40 in my wallet. The Davenport interview was in 3 days, 90 miles away. Gas would cost at least $30. That left $10 for food for the rest of the week. The math of poverty was simple and cruel. The next morning, Vaughn left early for a job. Denise was getting the kids ready for school, and I could hear her on the phone with her mother. "No, Mom, he's trying. He applies for jobs every day. But who's going to hire a 48-year-old former owner for entry-level work? They know he'll leave the second something better comes up." I waited until they were all gone before going upstairs. The pantry had a few cans of soup I wouldn't touch. That was their food, not mine. The ramen I'd bought last week was down to 2 packages. I mixed one with hot water, ate it standing at the sink, and tried not to think about the steaks I used to grill on weekends. That's when I saw the sign on my walk to the library where I used free Wi-Fi to apply for jobs. BioLife Plasma Center. New donors, $50 first visit. I stood outside for 10 minutes, watching people go in and out. Some looked like college students, probably doing it for beer money. Others looked like me. Middle-aged, tired, carrying that particular weight of failure in their shoulders. $50 meant gas to Davenport. It meant maybe getting a real meal before the interview so I wouldn't look as desperate as I was. It meant buying a few more days to pretend I could climb out of this hole. I walked in at 8 a.m. on that Tuesday, filled out the paperwork with hands that shook slightly. The questions were invasive, humiliating. "Have you eaten today?" "No." "Are you currently employed?" "No." "Is this donation for personal financial need?" "Yes." The waiting room smelled like disinfectant and defeat. A woman across from me was reading a romance novel, trying to look like she was here by choice. A young guy in construction boots was asleep in his chair, probably between shifts. We were all pretending this was normal, that selling pieces of ourselves was just another Tuesday morning errand. "Colton Rayford?" A nurse called my name. Keeley, according to her name tag. She was maybe 25, pretty in that fresh-faced way that made me feel every one of my 48 years. "First time?" "Yeah, never thought I'd be here." She led me to a recliner, started preparing the needle. "No shame in it, Mr. Rayford. You're helping save lives. Plus, everybody needs a little help sometimes." "Some more than others," I said, watching her tap my arm to find a vein. "You'd be surprised. Last week we had a lawyer in here, month before a doctor. Hard times don't discriminate." The needle went in smooth, and I watched my blood flow through the tube into the collection bag. Dark red, almost purple in the harsh fluorescent light. My father had donated blood regularly when I was a kid, used to take me along to the Red Cross drives at the VFW. "It's what decent people do," he'd say, but he was donating to help others. I was doing it for $50. Your blood looks really healthy, Keeley said, checking the flow. Good color, good consistency. Then she frowned, leaned closer to the collection bag. That's strange. What's strange? She pulled a small vial from the line, held it up to the light. I need to run a quick test. Standard procedure, nothing to worry about. She took the vial to a machine in the corner, put a drop on a slide, looked through a microscope. I watched her body language change. A straightening of the spine, a quick intake of breath. She looked again, then a third time, then backed away from the microscope like it had shown her something impossible. "Mr. Rayford," she whispered, turning to face me with eyes wide. "I need to get the director, right now. Please don't move, don't disconnect anything, this is important." "Am I sick? Is something wrong?" "No, sir, nothing's wrong. Everything's about to be very right." "Mr. Rayford, I need you to stay very still," Keeley said, her voice different now, urgent, professional, like she'd just discovered something that changed all the rules. "I'm getting Dr. Brennigan immediately." "Is something wrong? Am I sick?" The questions came out sharp because suddenly every worst-case scenario was flooding my mind. Cancer, HIV, some rare disease that would finish what losing everything had started. "No, sir, just please don't leave." She practically ran to the door, leaving me alone with the steady pump of the machine drawing my blood. Around me, other donors scrolled through their phones, oblivious to whatever drama was unfolding in my recliner. The TV droned on about mortgage rates, and I almost laughed at the irony. Dr. Brennigan arrived within minutes, a tall, thin man who looked at my blood sample, then at his computer screen, then back at the sample like he was solving an equation that shouldn't exist. "Mr. Rayford, we need to run a comprehensive panel immediately. I can't afford any tests. No charge, this is extraordinary." He pulled up a chair, sitting close enough that I could see the excitement he was trying to contain. "Your blood type is R0. We call it golden blood. Only 43 people on Earth have been documented with this type." I stared at him, trying to process words that sounded like science fiction. "Is that bad?" "Bad? Mr. Rayford, your blood can save anyone with rare blood types within the RH system. It's universal for people who otherwise have no donors. You're literally 1 in 200 million. His phone buzzed. He answered, speaking rapidly to someone, his eyes never leaving me. "Yes, confirmed, R0. He's here now. I understand the urgency." He hung up, immediately dialing another number. "We've just received an urgent request. There's a situation developing." "What kind of situation?" Before he could answer, the door burst open. A woman in an expensive suit walked in like she owned the building. Everything about her screamed money, from her Italian leather shoes to the Hermes bag she carried like a weapon. "Dr. Brennigan? Ms. Corvallo, this is Mr. Rayford." She turned to me, and I saw desperation beneath her professional composure. "Mr. Rayford, my name is Lucia Corvallo. I represent the Moreau family of Monaco. Henri Moreau is dying. He needs a transfusion within 12 hours, and you're the only match we've found in North America." "Monaco? That's in Europe." "The family jet is waiting at the executive airport. Mr. Rayford, the Moreaus are prepared to offer $2 million for your immediate cooperation." $2 million. The number hit me like a physical blow. I looked at my arm, at the needle drawing out blood I'd been about to sell for $50. For my blood? For saving Henry's life? But we need to leave now. Every minute matters. This is insane. This morning, I woke up broke in my brother's basement. Now, you're telling me someone will pay $2 million for my blood? "Mr. Rayford," she said, sitting down across from me, her voice softening slightly, "Henri Moreau is one of the wealthiest men in Europe. His shipping empire employs 30,000 people. He has children, grandchildren. He's been searching for a compatible donor for 3 years. You're not just blood to him, you're hope." I thought about Bryce trying to finish college, about my father, too proud to let me see him worry. About Vaughn and Denise, pretending it wasn't a burden to feed me. $2 million would change everything. But something wasn't adding up. Why the urgency, if he's been searching for 3 years? He had an incident yesterday. Internal bleeding from a condition that's been managed for years. He needs surgery, but without compatible blood for transfusion, the surgery will kill him. We have maybe 10 hours to get you there. What about the DNA test? I asked Dr. Brannigan, remembering Keeley had mentioned something about running additional tests. He hesitated, glancing at Miss Corvello. That can wait. No, she interrupted, surprising me. Tell him. He deserves to know before he decides. Dr. Brannigan pulled up something on his tablet, showing me a complex chart that might as well have been hieroglyphics. When we identified your Rh-null status, we ran a comprehensive genetic panel. It's standard protocol for rare blood types. But we found something else. Which is? You have genetic markers that indicate, Mr. Rayford, did your mother ever mention anything unusual about your birth? My mother died when I was 2. Car accident. Why? And your father never remarried? No. What does this have to do with my blood? Miss Corvello stepped forward. Mr. Rayford, the genetic markers Dr. Brannigan found match a very specific lineage. The Moreau family has been searching for blood relatives for 30 years. Henri Moreau had a younger brother, Vincent, who disappeared in 1973. My mouth went dry. So? Vincent Moreau came to America and changed his name to Russell Rayford. Mr. Rayford, the man you're being asked to save, Henry Moreau, is your father's brother, your uncle. The room started spinning. That's impossible. My father was born in Kansas. His parents were farmers. Your father was born Vincent Moreau in Marseille. He fled France after a family dispute over inheritance. He created an entirely new identity. She pulled out an old photograph, yellowed at the edges. 2 young men standing by a yacht, champagne glasses raised, smiling at something beyond the camera. One was clearly a younger version of the man in the medical files she'd shown me. The other made my heart stop. Dad? The word came out as a whisper. It was him. My father, Russell Rayford, maybe 25 years old, wearing clothes I'd never seen him able to afford, standing next to a yacht bigger than my brother's house. Your father walked away from one of Europe's largest shipping fortunes, Ms. Corvello said gently. Henri respected his choice, never tried to force contact. But now, Henri is dying, and his children don't share the rare blood type. Only Vincent's line carries it. My father is Russell Rayford from Topeka, I said, but even as I said it, pieces were clicking into place. How he never talked about his childhood. No photos before 1975. The way he sometimes muttered in his sleep in what I'd thought was gibberish but might have been French. His strange reaction whenever I'd asked about my grandparents. Always changing the subject. Always finding something urgent to do. Call him, Dr. Brannigan suggested gently. Ask him yourself. My hand shook as I pulled out my phone. The same phone I'd been using to apply for minimum wage jobs that morning. I dialed the number I'd known my whole life, waiting as it rang once, twice, 3 times. Colton, everything okay? Dad, I need to ask you something, and I need the truth. Dad, I need to ask you something, and I need the truth. Is your real name Vincent Moreau? The silence lasted so long I thought he'd hung up. I could hear his breathing, slow and deliberate, the way he breathed when he was lifting something heavy or thinking through a problem. Then, in a voice I'd never heard before, older and sadder and carrying an accent I'd never noticed, he spoke. How did you find out? Those 4 words changed everything. My father, Russell Rayford, the man who taught me to use a hammer, who'd worked 40 years for the railroad, who lived in a duplex and clipped coupons, was someone else entirely. I'm sitting in a plasma center, Dad. They found something in my blood. There's a man in Monaco who needs it. Henri Moreau. Henri? The name came out broken, like a bone finally snapping after years of pressure. Henri is dying? Dad, why didn't you ever tell me? Because I chose to be Russell Rayford. I chose your mother, chose America, chose to build something with my own hands instead of inheriting it. Vincent Moreau died in 1973, Colton. I killed him the day I got on that plane to New York. But Henri Moreau is your brother, my uncle, and he's dying, Dad. He's a good man, my father said, and I could hear 40 years of suppressed emotion in those 4 words. We had our differences, but he's family. The fight was never really about money, you know. It was about freedom. He wanted me to be someone I couldn't be. They're offering $2 million, Dad. He laughed, actually laughed, and for the first time I heard the man he must have been before he became Russell Rayford. Henri always did like grand gestures. When we were young, he once bought every flower in Nice because a girl mentioned she liked roses, filled her entire apartment building's lobby. Dad, I need to know the truth, all of it. Come see me after you save my brother. I'll tell you everything then, but Colton, you go. You take their money, you save Henri, and you tell him that Vincent forgave him 40 years ago. Tell him I named my son after the American West because I wanted you to be as free as I felt the day I first saw those wide-open spaces. Dad? Go, son. Some things are bigger than our past. I hung up and looked at Miss Corvello. I'll go, but I want to understand everything. You will, she said, already on her phone arranging transportation. The car will be here in 5 minutes. Dr. Brennigan carefully removed the needle from my arm, and Keeley bandaged the spot with extraordinary care, like she was handling something precious. You're about to save a life, Mr. Rayford, maybe more than one. The ride to the executive airport was surreal. Miss Corvello sat across from me in the leather interior of a Bentley, making calls in rapid French. I caught my father's real name several times, Vincent, and it sounded like a stranger. The jet was already running when we arrived, a sleek white aircraft with Moreau Industries written in small letters near the tail. Have you ever flown private, Mr. Rayford? Miss Corvello asked as we boarded. I've never even flown first class. The interior looked like a luxury hotel suite. Cream leather seats, polished wood tables, a bedroom in the back. A medical team was already on board, preparing equipment. Dr. Sarah Ashford introduced herself as Henry's personal physician. Your blood is going to allow us to perform surgery that will save his life, she explained as we took off. Without it, we couldn't risk the procedure. You're literally his only hope. During the flight, Miss Corvello showed me more photographs. My father, Vincent, at various ages, always beside Henri, at a wedding, on a yacht, at what looked like a board meeting. In every photo before 1973, he looked trapped. Then she showed me one final picture. This was taken the day before Vincent left. It showed my father standing alone on a dock, staring out at the Mediterranean. Even in the old photograph, I could see the yearning in his posture, the need to be somewhere else, someone else. He left a note, Miss Corvello said. Henri kept it all these years. She handed me a yellowed piece of paper, the ink faded but still readable. It was in English, written in my father's distinctive hand. Henri, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Not because I hate you or our family, but because I love you too much to become someone I'm not. The company, the money, the expectations, they're yours. You were born for it. I was born for something else. I'm going to America to find out what. Maybe I'll fail, but it will be my failure, earned with my own hands. Tell Papa and Mama I'm sorry. Tell them I'll always be their son, just not the one they planned. And tell yourself, brother, that this isn't goodbye, it's just me finally learning to breathe. Vincent. We landed in Monaco as the sun was setting. The hospital was unlike anything I'd ever seen, more like a luxury hotel than a medical facility. Henri Moreau was in a private wing that took up an entire floor. When they wheeled me into his room for the first transfusion, I finally met my uncle. He was smaller than I'd expected, fragile-looking against the white sheets, but his eyes, they were exactly like my father's, dark and intelligent and carrying decades of stories. "You have your grandmother's eyes," he said in accented English, his voice weak but clear. "Vincent's boy, he wrote me once, you know, when you were born." "He did?" "Said he'd named you Colton, after the American West he'd fallen in love with. Said you were his greatest accomplishment, greater than anything the Moreau fortune could have given him." The transfusion took 4 hours. Henry and I talked between his moments of rest, about my father's youth, about the shipping empire their father had built, about the fight that had driven Vincent to become Russell. "It was never about the money," Henry said, echoing my father's words. "It was about choice. I wanted him to choose the family. He wanted to choose himself. We were both right, we were both wrong. Do you regret not reaching out?" "Every day. But I respected his choice. That was the only gift I could give him, his freedom." The surgery happened the next morning. My blood, that rare, golden blood that had been flowing through my veins unknown for 48 years, made it possible. Henri survived, thrived even. Within 3 days he was sitting up, color returning to his face, making jokes with his children. My cousins, I had to remind myself. The $2 million appeared in my account as promised. But that wasn't the only gift. Henri's daughter, Isabel, was a successful developer expanding into American markets. "We need someone who understands demolition and reconstruction," she said over dinner on my last night in Monaco. "Someone we can trust, family." I lost my company, I failed. You lost a battle with bureaucracy. That's not the same as failing. Besides, she smiled. A smile I recognized as the same, one my father had. Moreaus are very good at starting over. It's in your blood, literally. I flew back to America 3 days after the surgery, but I wasn't the same man who'd walked into that plasma center desperate for $50. The $2 million in my account was real. I must have checked the banking app 40 times just to make sure the numbers didn't disappear. But more than that, I carried with me the knowledge of who I really was, where I really came from, and why my father had chosen to bury it all. My first stop was Topeka. Dad was waiting at his duplex, coffee already made, sitting at the same kitchen table where he'd taught me multiplication tables and helped me with college applications. But now I saw him differently. Not just Russell Rayford, retired railroad engineer, but Vincent Moreau, the man who'd walked away from everything to become nothing, and then built himself into something real. "Henri sends his regards," I said, sitting across from him. "Is he well?" "He's going to be fine. The surgery was successful. He wanted me to tell you that you're welcome home any time." Dad smiled, the kind of sad smile that carries decades of complicated history. "I am home, Colton. I've been home since the day I met your mother at that diner in Omaha. Tell me about her. Tell me about everything." For the next 6 hours, my father became Vincent again, telling me stories I'd never heard. How he'd arrived in New York with $20,000 he'd secretly saved and a determination to disappear. How he'd taken railroad work because it meant constant movement, hard to track. How he'd met my mother, Linda, when his engine broke down in Nebraska, and she'd served him coffee and pie and asked him why such a handsome man looked so sad. "She never knew," he said. "I wanted to tell her 100 times, but how do you explain that you're not who you say you are? How do you tell the woman you love that you've been lying since the day you met? Did you ever regret it? Every Christmas when I couldn't give her the things she deserved. Every time you needed something I couldn't afford. But then I'd watch you and Vaughn playing in the yard, building forts out of cardboard boxes, and I'd know I'd made the right choice. You grew up free, Colton. Free to fail, free to succeed, free to be exactly who you are. That's worth more than any inheritance." I called Bryce that evening from my hotel room. "Dad, how did the interview in Davenport go?" "I didn't go to Davenport, son. Turns out I had somewhere more important to be." "What are you talking about?" Your grandfather has some stories to tell you, and you're not going to worry about tuition anymore, or anything else for that matter. Dad, you're scaring me. What happened? I donated blood, Bryce. Turns out sometimes when you think you're at your lowest, you're actually exactly where you need to be. The next morning, I called Melora from my rental car. Colton, why are you calling? I told you my lawyer would handle everything. I'm not calling to reconcile, Melora. I'm calling to thank you. Thank me for leaving, for calling me a loser, for showing me who you really were, because if you'd stayed, I'd never have walked into that plasma center, never have discovered what was in my blood, never have learned who I really am. What are you talking about? I'm talking about finding out that sometimes being broken is the only way to discover what you're really made of. Goodbye, Melora. Have a good life. I mean that. I hung up before she could respond. There was something deeply satisfying about having the last word with someone who thought they'd already written my ending. Within a month, I was back in business. Rayford International Demolition, a subsidiary of Moreau Development. My first project was a $40 million contract in Chicago. I hired back 6 of my old crew members, guys who'd stuck by me even when I couldn't pay them their last checks. Boss, heard you came into some family money, my foreman Jake said on the first day. Something like that, I said. Turns out I've got relatives in the shipping business. 6 months later, I stood in my new office, not as grand as my old one, but solid, real, earned with blood in the most literal sense possible. My father, Russell Rayford, or Vincent Moreau, depending on his mood that day, sat across from me. We were going through applications for a new training program I was starting, offering kids from rough backgrounds a chance to learn demolition and construction. Giving people second chances, he said, approving. Someone once told me that failure isn't falling down, it's staying down. And sometimes, Dad, you have to lose everything to find out what you're really worth. $2 million, apparently, he joked. No, I said, thinking about Henri, about family I never knew I had, about blood that connected me to something bigger than myself. Turns out I'm worth exactly what everyone is worth, whatever someone else needs to survive. I just happened to be lucky enough to find out what that was. The plasma center called last week. Another rare blood patient needs help. This time, I didn't hesitate. Some gifts are in what we build, some in what we achieve. But sometimes, the most valuable thing we have is what's been flowing through our veins all along. We just need to be broken enough to discover it. My name is Colton Rayford. I'm the son of Vincent Moreau, who chose to become Russell Rayford. I'm the nephew of Henry Moreau, whom I saved with blood he'd been searching for across an ocean. I'm the father of Bryce, who'll inherit both the story and the choice of what to do with it. And I learned that sometimes being called a loser is the first step to discovering what winning really means. It just took selling my blood for $50 to find out I was worth millions, not because of what I'd built or lost, but because of what had been inside me all along. The rarest thing about us isn't what we accomplish or what we earn. It's what we carry without knowing, waiting for the right moment, the right need, the right desperate morning to reveal itself. My father chose to be ordinary and became extraordinary because of it. I was forced to become ordinary and discovered I was extraordinary all along. That's the thing about blood. It doesn't care about your bank account or your failures or what your ex-wife thinks of you. It just flows, carrying gifts you don't know you have until someone needs them to survive, and sometimes that's enough to change everything. If you found this story valuable, if it made you think differently about failure or family or the gifts we carry without knowing, please like this video and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Leave a comment below about a time when your lowest moment led to an unexpected discovery. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories about ordinary people discovering extraordinary truths hidden in the most unexpected places. Because everyone has something flowing through their veins. Sometimes it's golden blood, sometimes it's just the strength to keep going, but it's always worth more than you think.